Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Future Tech podcast series. Podcast focused for STEM graduates, looking at the emerging technologies, where myself, Charlie Sell, is speaking with CTOs, CIOs from around the world, trying to find a bit about their story, thoughts on emerging technologies and future job roles. So really pleased to have Jason Latham with me today. Jason is the CTO at Hey, fintech business set up in Australia at the moment, although looking for the global reach, UK and Asia, and very much at the starting point and growing part of their journey. So hi Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Charlie.
How are you today?
Yes, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad.
We were just saying, because you're in Australia at the moment, so you're 9 hours ahead by all accounts, and so 5 p.m. over there.
It is 5 p.m., yes. And I moved to Australia in January of this year as part of my work with Hey. Started with the tech company in the UK, which is where all our tech is based, and we've got some great engineers. But in order to be part of the accountability regime, etc., I had to become tax resident in Australia. It's a hard life, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. Well, I always say we should high five each other in the airport, Australians and the Brits, because we seem to flock over there for the opportunities in the sun, and our Australian friends come over here. So I don't know who gets the better work part of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've worked with some great Australians actually in the UK. That's one of the reasons we look to set the tech business up in the UK, because our feeling was most of the best Australians in tech were probably already over in London.
Yeah. So straight into it, really. I would love to know a bit about your story, how you got into technology and eventually became the CTO for Hey.
So, I've always been into technology. I go back a long time, but my first computer was a ZX81, and I had a Commodore 64. Bit of programming was my hobby, and when it came time for me to get a job, it was a natural fit, and I got my first role. I actually worked for the Employment Service in Sheffield at their technology head office, and I was there for a year or so. I got my first bit of experience, and then from there, I managed to land myself a job in London with a company called Temps, which was a very, very small company. And it was one of those things where hitting a deadline meant getting paid, because you wanted to get the invoices out. And it's probably the company that I credit with setting the foundation for my whole career. I did everything from build computers, business analyst, database design, software development, go out and deliver. Really got to see the end-to-end sort of delivery. I spent 5 years there. It was run by an ex-Oxford graduate who wanted to start his own business. He wasn't that much older than me, sort of in his mid-20s at the time. And we had a great time, and I learned a lot. And it was we did some fantastic work, punched above our weight. We were only a 5-6 person company at the time. We had customers like Diageo, London Underground, British Telecom. So it was great. So I spent 5 years there, and that really did set the tone for my career. And generally, I've had a great career. I've worked for some fantastic organisations. If I look at the last 14, 15 years, I've only got 3 employers. That's Marshall Wace, who are one of the best hedge funds in the world, Shawbrook Bank, who are one of the UK challengers. That I joined them before they were Shawbrook Bank, and went with them on their journey through IPO and then back into private ownership. And Hey, so it's been good. I've had a couple of bumps in the road. I went to CMG, or I think a Logica CMG now, or maybe there's something else. I was only there for 2 weeks. That was followed Temps, and all they wanted me to do was draw pictures for insurance applications. And having spent 5 years doing everything, I knew I wasn't going to do that. I also spent less than 3 months during the dot-com boom at a company called Infobank, which was a company that got a lot of money, was growing from sort of 50 to 200 people. and was a political cesspool. And again, that was another one I decided it was time to get out of. But generally, I've made good choices. I've worked with great people, on the way up. That's one of the most important things, and one of the biggest tips that I would give to people is when you're looking for jobs, look at the quality of the people that are there, who you can learn from, and who you want to work with. I've had that, and it led to, I was looking to move on from Shawbrook. I'd had a great time at Shawbrook. I was there for 7 years, but I think the people who build a bank's balance sheet from 0 to 5 billion are not necessarily the people who are fit to run a bank balance sheet as it goes from 5 billion and upwards. And I think it's important to understand what kind of career you want, what kind of company suits you, and then move on happily with no malice and move, for me, back down the entrepreneurial curve, back towards a startup, which is where I like to be.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more around how culture and people of a business is probably the biggest factor for an opportunity, rather than just the technology or the industry sector. Have you got any thoughts on what graduates can do when they're looking at a company to get an understanding of a culture or the type of people that work there?
I think it's difficult for graduates, and I think it's difficult for young people generally. I think if I could go back and have my career again and start in my early 20s, knowing my own value and knowing then what I knew now, I'd have a better career. So what I would advise graduates to do, and particularly once they get in and they're sort of young professionals, is know their own value, and understand their importance, and reach out to do the kind of things they want. And it is important to understand what you want to do as well. I mean, I know people that love doing BAU and bug fixing every day and don't want to get involved in big projects. I know other people who, would hand the notice in the moment you ask them to sort of fix a bug on an older system. So know what you like to do, know what kind of company you like to work in. I personally like the small entrepreneurial company where I can get involved in many things. Some of the people prefer, an easier life, which I think it is in the bigger companies. It's a bit more difficult to get things out, I think. That's why it's my preference. But know what it is that you want to do, and then go for it and talk to people. If you're unhappy with something, it's not going for you, go and talk to your boss. He would rather you did that than the first time you have that conversation is when you tell him you've got another job. Because when you've got another job, your feet are already out the door. I don't even try and talk people around at that point. But if you can have that conversation before, so it's those kind of things. Be open, be honest, understand, and don't be frightened.
Yeah.
Grab it.
Yeah, again, I couldn't agree with you more. And do you think there's been an evolving trend, or when we think about developers nowadays and technical teams, that communication skills are now becoming as important as their technical skills when you are working within a team and within a company?
I think this was one of the things I was thinking about today before we did this meeting, and what kind of skills would you go? Generally, throughout my career, I found two kinds of, and I was a software developer by trade, so I think of development more than anything else. And there's two kinds of developers. There's the ones who are technical, are very technical, spend all of their time reading technical documents and produce some great stuff. And then there's people who maybe go through management, delivery, that kind of thing. I think if you're heavily technical, don't worry about who's managing delivery and things like that. Embrace your inner geek, embrace that tech. You still do need to be able to communicate, but perhaps you need to communicate to other techies. If you want to go down more of a path that perhaps leads to CTO, CIO, you need to be able to talk to senior stakeholders. You need to be able to talk to them in a way that they understand, and you need to be able to succinctly get your message across. So those communication skills for people who are looking for, the more senior managerial rather than the senior technical roles in IT, communication is it's key. It's everything. If you can talk to people in their own language, and as a CIO, you need to be able to talk to techies and to the board. If you can do that, that's the route to go down.
Yeah. No, again, it's interesting that I think people, shouldn't be afraid of understanding their inner geek, as you say, and not to force yourself down a career line if it's not what actually is passionate to you. So true technical, living the true technical world is where you're most comfortable. That's as valuable as probably people who can be the delivery manager or move into that more managerial.
Yeah, and it's as lucrative as well. I know people are managing delivery who are earning less than the engineers that work for them.
Yeah.
Engineering, top quality engineers, they are rock stars is the word that's used in a lot of places, and they are, and it's embrace your inner geek. If you're a geek, don't worry about managing, because it just gets in the way of doing the things you enjoy.
Yeah. Really.
And if you're going to be a manager, the other thing I would say is stay technical for long enough to gain the credibility. And there's no reason you can't be very technical, and a communicator. But I would stay technical long enough that you gain the credibility, you don't lose it, and then as you grow up delivery, you understand what's going on.
Yeah, great. So thinking about how you're building the tech platform for Hay and your thoughts on technology, what are the most interesting or exciting technologies to you at the moment and in the marketplace?
So I think what's exciting for me about Hay, and I don't think we're breaking, we're not at the bleeding edge of what some of the deep tech companies would be doing, but in banking, I think we're doing a lot. When we looked to build the team at Hay, we literally had a blank piece of paper, and the decision was, in terms of architecture, in terms of technology, and what we actually did with the team at Hay is we went and interviewed without a clear idea of what tech we were going to use. We thought we'd hire people rather than technology, and we were looking at Go. We were looking at Java as the main two, and we were looking at what people were available. We hired, my first hire is who's my head of engineering now, and he's an ex-Imperial graduate. He's a top quality individual. Java was his strength. We worked with an innovation partner with some top quality people who'd come out of Microsoft Europe. And we built a platform that was pure microservices. We built it around a Kafka messaging layer. We're entirely cloud native. The only on-prem architecture we have is a couple of firewalls in our Australian office, and they protect the door access system and the CCTV, and that is it, and allow people to VPN into the cloud. Working with Kafka, it didn't quite have the availability we wanted, so we needed to architect around to make sure we got the availability levels and things that we wanted. And with a great team and some great partners, our architecture is probably unique in the banking world in its, the way there are more cutting edge technologies out there, but we're fully containerized. We've concentrated on IT risk and security because we were looking to build a bank as much as we have on the technology. We've moved both along at the same pace. And we've got a set of technology and a team that I'm very proud to have led and very proud to have been involved in.
Great. And from what we see, especially within fintech, as you mentioned, the sort of the security side, it's the cloud native, making it a trustworthy platform is probably your key outcome, isn't it? So what the technology you use to achieve that is sort of
it is
the outcome.
It is, and as CTO, there's been things I've had to concentrate on that I didn't necessarily have to concentrate on as a developer. And one of the things you learn, when I was a developer, it was clear to me that development was the most important thing in the world. And that nothing happened unless you was a developer. As I become a CTO, you realize that software delivery is actually a team effort of a number of different disciplines, including security and testing and analysts and, even the business. And we've been lucky to put a crack team together at Hay across the whole piece. I mean, we have a CISO who I personally think is world class. He too has got understands developers, so the work he's done with the developers around getting the platform where it needs to be has been outstanding. And as I say, we have a great team of top quality technologists who've been empowered to deliver, which for me is the way you deliver innovation when you're there. We've hired some great people, given them the ability to do the job, but also given them the support to do the job, and the tools and the experts around them. And yeah, we've got something we're very, very proud of at Hay.
Yeah, and that comment you made about empowerment, I also think is, that's probably one of the best management lessons I personally learned myself. But if you can empower people and give them trust, they'll achieve and grow so much quicker than if you micromanage or try to cut their wings essentially. And I guess when we're thinking about graduates and the type of companies, personally, that's what I've found is the difference between entrepreneurial startup or scale up businesses versus sometimes your PLCs, your more established companies. Is, will you be empowered? Will you be given autonomy? Will you be given trust to grow? And that's where the entrepreneurial businesses seem to thrive.
Yeah, and I guess a piece of advice I'd give to any of your sort of STEM listeners who are going to follow my path in the future is understand that when you empower people, they won't do it the way you would have done it. And sometimes that's not going to be as good as as well as you would have done it. And other times it's going to be a damn sight better because actually, that's why you hired them. But you've got to let them go. You've got to let them do it. And it's not just about empowerment of the individuals. It's about empowerment of the team as well. Again, Marius, my head of engineering, fosters, in his agile meetings and his scrums and things, the ability for everybody to sort of contribute and understand, and the whole team is empowered and they all really enjoy working there. It just makes all of the difference.
Yeah, great. So thinking around future job roles, and I suppose there's a couple more nuggets of, if passing on advice. If you were to nasogate, a lot of our listeners are starting their graduate course, so in 3-4 years time they're going to graduate. And it's commonly known that I think there's a stat is 70% of jobs haven't even been invented yet for 5 years' time, with how quickly technology is evolving. But $1 million question from you: where do you see future job roles if you were giving someone advice starting their graduate course?
I mean, I think technology is going to play such a big role in everybody's life, not just people who are looking for a job in technology. I mean, you can't avoid it in the workplace. I think big tech will get bigger. They're already starting to dominate the world. The likes of Apple have got so much money. It's, what do they do with it? And you see, the likes of those moving into financial services and things like that. So I think big tech will get bigger. And I think big tech is probably, the destination for your best and brightest geeks, because they're going to be the ones that are coming up with new stuff. I think the other path, which is probably the path I would go down, I think there's going to be so much that already exists. I think there's going to be it's going to be much easier for entrepreneurs and people to have an idea and bring it to life because the building blocks are all there. And we're seeing that, more and more. You're seeing, low code platforms. You're seeing, most of what fintech is for me is, fintechs tend to target a particular piece of the value chain, where they think they can make money, where they think they can disrupt, leave the bank doing A to Z and they'll just do, P to T and take the money out of there. And, the tools are there now to, the mobile's ubiquitous to almost everyone. You can do almost anything on it. The power of what you can do there. As I say, all of the building blocks are there for people to realize and bring these ideas to life. And that's one of the things, we've done at Hay. Hay Limited, which is the Australian company, is effectively the first customer of Hay Technology Limited, which is our UK company. And we've built a platform, with the microservices that's, very, very easy to use and target points of those value chain, be it the payment rails or fraud. So we're looking to enable other fintechs through those rails as well. And I think, that will get more and more prevalent. So I would say that, there'll be some super technologists who are listening to this and will end up at the Palantirs, the Googles, the Facebooks of the world. And good luck to them. I'd say there's another group of technologists who will be looking to enable other businesses. Will need to understand what those businesses do and how best to utilize the available technology to deliver for those businesses. So I'd say it go down, split and go down one of those two routes.
Yeah. Well, great. What good advice. So, Jason, thank you. That's been really, really interesting, and it's great to hear your side of it. As I say, coming from the startup, the fintech side, but also how separating the inner geek versus the people who want to learn how to manage the big tech companies versus actually businesses that want to utilize technology, or if that's where you want to go. So that's been really, really interesting, and thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Great. So that's another episode of the Future Tech podcast series. It's on YouTube, the Aris Group YouTube channel, Spotify, and the career portals of the universities we've partnered with. And here's the next time. Thank you.